Alright, so next we have Ssoc 201 tutorial 2. And here we're talking about the impact that leaders and others had on the village society and what had to be changed to influence change in the community. Right, so firstly, the impact that leaders had on the village society. Gideon cast out the wolves, so he made the village initially a safer place. And because of that, society changed in terms of the church bells started to chime. Families started to see stars. They came out to see stars for the first time. Yeah, he made it a safe place. The impact he had on them was so great, they wanted to name their village after him. So because of how they had saved them, they decided to name their village after him. Another impact he had, because casting them out, people started to journey alone, and they no longer tended their fires. Kind of all results in what I said was they became comfortable and actually became a bit ignorant and too comfortable. They were set in their comfort zones because this guy had come and saved them. Sorry, I'm quite sick. Second one was the child. The child, biggest one, was brought insight to the village. So the child got them thinking for themselves. The child inspired courage, brought joy back into the village, and taught them to be resilient. The biggest thing I think the child did was, not give them or not save them from things. The child made them think for themselves and taught them lessons to help themselves out, to make their community their own and a better place for them. And then the other leaders, again, is the 7. They brought back celebration. They brought back a new perspective to the village, and they brought back courage. That was the impact they had, because obviously the child was a stranger, and now after the 7 had been changed, after they had seen that the wolves were gone and their change in perspective, the village started to see, hey, this is our own people, and because it was their own people, that had a greater impact on the village. So the next point is what had to be changed to influence change in the community. So I said they had to see that Gideon had weakness to make changes, and they depended on him for everything. So going back to one of his key personal skills, I really think it was wise for him to leave. He had to leave for what happened next to follow, because they were so dependent on him for everything, that if he hadn't had left, it would have just been much of the same thing and they wouldn't have been successful. The 7 had to go into the forest to see with their own eyes that there were no wolves. They had to go there. They had to face that adversity. They had to face the fear to change their perspective. They had to go through that for that to be changed themselves, and in return to come back and change the community around them. That had to happen. The child had to build relationships to impact more people. So the child had to start with those 7 people, that small group. The child had to start building relationships with people in the community, because the child knew they couldn't just do it on their own. They had to build those relationships to impact change in the community. They had to face adversity to grow stronger. The whole community had to face the cold winter, had to face the wolves. They had to go through that. They had to go through the failures or setbacks to make them stronger. They needed a leader to face them, to think for themselves. So Gideon left, and they needed that child to lead them, and not just give them everything. not to spoon feed them. They needed someone to force them to think for themselves, to make their community their own. And lastly, their perception had to be changed. Yeah, that was obviously impacted by the child, but their perception had to be changed. Their insights, the way they viewed setbacks, that all had to change for their community to be successful. So, yeah, well, that was SSOC 201 tutorial 1, so tutorial 2. And yeah, a lot of good lessons learned from the story. It was quite enjoyable. Cool. Thank you.